and the rain is pouring down, and my heart is hurting. You will always be around. This I know for certain.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. National Anthem of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. From the love of liberty in the fires of hope and prayer, with boundless faith in our destiny, we solemnly declare. Side by side we stand, islands of the blue Caribbean Sea, this our native land, we pledge our lives to thee. Let every great and risk finally progress, and may God bless our nation. Let every great and risk finally progress, and may God bless our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, the flag of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago is already hoisted as host country of this year's conference. Please remain standing as we welcome the flags of all the participating member countries. They will be accompanied by the playing of a brief portion of that country's anthem, and they're being brought in by members of the cadet force. Beginning with Anguilla. Antigua and Barbuda. Commonwealth of the Bahamas, Barbados, Belize, Bermuda, the British Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands, Grenada, the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Jamaica, Montserrat. You okay? Saint Christopher and Nevis. Saint Lucia. Turks and Caicos Islands. There are two countries with observer status at this year's conference, representing the British Islands and Mediterranean region, Wales. And second observer and final flag, Suriname. Ladies and gentlemen, the participating member countries of the Caribbean, Americas, and Atlantic region of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. standing, ladies and gentlemen, for the invocation, which is to be performed by Mr. Ricardo Barrath Hernandez, Chief of the Santa Rosa First Peoples.
Please be seated. Your Excellency Paula May Weeks, President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar, other parliamentarians, distinguished ladies and gentlemen all, may I greet you in the indigenous Lokono and Cariña greetings, Sato Morocco, Sato Kasakabo, Mabrika, Mabrika, which is to say good morning, good day, and welcome. It is an honor for the First Peoples to be invited to bring the invocation at this 44th Regional Conference of the Caribbean, Americas, and the Atlantic region of the Commonwealth of Parliamentary Association. Let us put ourselves in the presence of our Creator, as in the tradition of the First Peoples, the ancestors and the present leaders are acknowledged in their respective lands. The Great Spirit, the Creator, has given this planet Earth, or as some of us refer to it as Mother Earth, to human beings to live and occupy, and as caretakers with an eternal duty to protect and nurture its sacredness. Human beings are allowed to live and produce on Mother Earth only through sustainable means. To desecrate one element of the earth is to upset the equilibrium of the whole and to retard the entire cycle. Having this in mind, as we come together at this time for this very special occasion, where the leaders of our region will confer on matters affecting our various lands, and for the organizing having recognized that there is a supreme force, that there is a greater power, that is an unseen force, and yet at times that force becomes visible to us. Having recognized that, you begin this assembly, this conference, by invoking the presence of that Supreme Spirit. That Supreme Spirit is one energy. It is one force that sustains the universe. And because of our different cultural strains and ethnicities, that energy manifests herself to our different peoples in different forms. And for some, he is known as the I am that I am, the great I am. To others, he is known as Olodumare. To others, as Brahma. To others, as Jehovah. To others, as Jesus the Christ. And this is just a few of that energy's manifestation from time to time, from age to age. And so, taking that form that you as an individual can relate to, and taking that name in your mind and on your tongues, bring that form to your mind before your being, because prayer is serious. And as we send our prayer to that energy that we as individuals can relate to, let us ask that energy, that force that we call God, to take control of this gathering and what will follow in the days ahead, so that the result will be to the honor and glory of the supreme entity and to the welfare of all our peoples. Ehei, Papa Tamushi, Adayali Wachinachi, Ehei, O great God, O creator of all that is visible and invisible, we invoke your holy and divine presence on this assembly. We ask that you will be present in your various forms to take control, to defeat all that is negative, and to bless with all that is good that comes from you. We recognize that as humans, we have faults because of our human weakness, and so we beg your mercy and forgiveness. O Great Spirit, we send our prayer to you in thanksgiving for your many blessings to our various peoples and nations from time to time. We ask you to protect us from all that is not of you, from disasters and all that is not of you. We ask you to bless us with all that we stand in need of our respective lands and peoples. We ask that you will continue to inspire and to guide us so that all our peoples will enjoy and benefit. Ehei, Papa Tamushi, Adayali Wachinachi, Ehei. We ask that you will take control, that you will bless all who have assembled, all who will deliberate, and all who have come from their respective lands. Receive our prayers, and may the Great Spirit and the guardian spirits bear witness to our prayers. O Great Spirit, you dwell within the highest heaven, and you have placed us upon the lowest earth. From the lowest earth to the highest heaven we send our prayer, and we ask that the guardian spirits or the guardian angels, those of the east, those of the west, those of the north, and those of the south, bear witness to our prayer. Ehei, Papa Tamushi, Adayali Wachinachi, Ehei.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ricardo Barth Hernandez. I would like to welcome to the podium to bring welcome remarks the President of the Senate of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Senator the Honorable Christine Kangaloo. Put your hands together, folks.
Her Excellency Paul-Amy Weeks, ORTT, President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Honorable Dr. Keith Rowley, MP, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Bridget Anisette George, MP, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Akbar Khan, Secretary General of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, presiding officers, other parliamentarians and clerks of the Caribbean, the Americas, and the Atlantic region of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, His Worship the Mayor of Port of Spain, Alderman Joel Martinez, members of the Diplomatic Corps, all other distinguished guests, including our former presiding officers, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me enormous pleasure to welcome you to this, the 44th Conference of the Caribbean, Americas, and Atlantic region of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. May I say at once how thrilled the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago is to be hosting you for this year's conference. Commonwealth parliamentarians look forward every year to this conference because it allows us as a collective to gather together in one place and undertake two exceedingly critical exercises. The first, to review and renew our relationships among ourselves internally, and the second, to reassess and redefine our relationship with the outside world whom we serve. Trinidad and Tobago is extremely excited to host you at this year's conference because this year's conference theme and plenary session topics are so uniquely suited to these two assignments. The conference theme, Globalization and Nationalism, Quo Vadis, Impacts on Commonwealth Parliaments, speaks, I dare say, for itself. It calls us first to interrogate and then to balance wisely two of the most powerful geopolitical forces at play in today's world, the need for countries to work together to achieve that elusive ideal of a global village of Earth's inhabitants, yet the need at the same time for countries to forge their individual identities and futures, even as they participate as members of that global village. This year's plenary session topics are no less intellectually engaging. They call for the same commitment to analysis and to balance, and include the committee system and the part-time parliamentarian, human rights, are our parliaments fully accessible to persons with disabilities, and digital disinformation, the challenges to parliaments and to democracy. Importantly, this year's conference also includes a Youth Commonwealth Parliament, which will debate the topic, securing our borders to mitigate the effects of crime whilst observing our humanitarian obligations. As they do in all things, this year our young people will provide us with invaluable insight into how they perceive we should balance our responsibilities to ourselves with our relationships and our responsibilities to the international community. You will understand, therefore, Trinidad and Tobago's shared delight in hosting this year's conference. While we have an extremely busy and exciting conference ahead of us, Trinidad and Tobago also intends to live up fully to our reputation for warmth and hospitality. And we have, for all our participants, an exciting immersion into the sights and sounds and tastes of all that is Trinidad and Tobago. The most exciting and exacting of these having been left for after our conference hours, of course. And so we welcome you with open arms to this conference and to our beloved Trin Island Republic. May this year's conference be long remembered as one of the most thought-provoking and enjoyable CPA sessions ever held, not unlike yesterday's thrilling World Cup cricket final between our Commonwealth counterparts, Australia and New Zealand. Welcome again, and good luck.
Thank you very much, Madam President. This conference, of course, is taking place under the auspices of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, and so it is my privilege to next welcome to the podium to bring greetings the Secretary General of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, Mr. Akbar Khan. Please put your hands together for him.
Thank you very much. So, very good morning to everyone. And may I start by recognizing the Chief of the Santa Rosa, representatives of the First Peoples of the nation, and thank them for their blessing for this conference today. Thank you. I also wish to recognize Her Excellency, Madam President, the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honourable Prime Minister, the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honourable Presiding Officers, Madam Kangaloo, and also Madam Bridget Anasat George, Speaker of the House, Presiding Officers from the various branches of the regions, Honourable Ministers, Honourable Members of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, observers, Madam Clerk, Mrs. Jackie McGuell-Sampson, and other secretaries attending with delegations, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and friends of the Commonwealth. A very good morning to you all. It is a great honour to join you this morning to make some opening remarks on the theme of the 44th Annual Regional Conference of the Caribbean, Americas and Atlantic region, namely globalisation and nationalism, Quo Vadis, impacts on Commonwealth parliaments. I would like to first start by specifically thanking the presiding officers of the Parliament of the Trinidad and Tobago, along with their colleagues, for all of their immense hard work in making this conference possible. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker and Madam President of the Senate. Having left Guyana, one of the branches attending this conference several decades ago as a young boy for the United Kingdom, Opportunities to return to the Caribbean often warm my heart. And you've given us, Madam Speaker, Madam President, a very warm welcome here. So thank you very much already for this wonderful start to your conference. The theme of this year's regional conference touches upon some of the biggest challenges that parliaments as representative institutions face in the modern Commonwealth and beyond. Globalisation and nationalism, in my humble view, are not mutually exclusive. Rather, there is an inherent link between them, demonstrating the increasing global interconnectedness throughout our world. In fact, during the 19th and 20th centuries, nationalism played a central role in shaping the world, from the collapse of the Ottoman Empire to the emergence of independent nations, the two world wars, and the world's superpowers. In our own Commonwealth, it was our forefathers' strong sense of nationalism that served as a catalyst for self-determination and independence. Throughout history, nationalism can be found almost everywhere, taking its form in politicians, national leaders, propaganda, and mass media. Today, we are again witnessing the pervasive forces of nationalism, perhaps the most prevalent now globally than we have seen since the post-war period. But it's important to underscore that scholars often make a distinction between the two types of nationalism: ethnic nationalism and civic nationalism. Civic nationalism is often said to be inclusive and emphasizes the legal political community, and as such can be a great unifier and contributes positively to effective development and state building. In contrast, ethnic nationalism is said to be exclusive, focusing principally on culturalism, and is often used by many to promote national unity and patriotism. But of course, we've seen a much uglier face of nationalism, which, when fused with populism, is a fuel of the politics of resentment and nostalgia, and a reassertion of dominance over ethnic, racial, and cultural minorities. It should be recalled that it was these very aspects of ethnic nationalism that contributed to the first two world wars. So where are we going? Quo vadis? In essence, discontent appears to be revolving around several deep societal shifts. Firstly, there are high levels of political distrust, or public distrust, around politicians, fueled by populist leaders who present themselves and their supporters as victims, pitted against a group of elites in the political system that have become less representative of the public. There is a sense, too, that too much individual sovereignty has been ceded by an overweening government of elites who have arranged the rules for their own benefit, resulting in crony capitalism for the well-placed elites. The imposition of more regulation on citizens have left them feeling a loss of control over their personal choices, which have increasingly been taken away, making them feel that life is no longer a fair game for the ordinary citizen. Second, many citizens have strong entrenched fears about the perceived destruction of their cultural identity, their national ways of life, amid unprecedented waves of immigration, resulting in their fear of ethnic change. The fear of loss of national culture and identity is compounded by a lack of control at borders and undesirable immigrants and potential terrorists entering into one's territory. Third, accompanying the distrust and the fear are anxieties, of course, around the deprivation of loss of jobs and income, along with a strong sense that the ethnic and social group are being left behind to others in society. And fourth and finally, the last societal shift is that in many political systems, in the developed and developing world, we are having to grapple with a new era of de-alignment, in which bonds between voter and traditional parties are breaking down, and hence the path for new political challenges are emerging. When one looks at these societal shifts and changes, there is nothing ephemeral about the rise of nationalism and the perceived impacts of globalism. It should therefore come as no surprise to any of us that nationalism we are seeing today is expected not only to persist, but in fact to increase and intensify in response to globalization. Thus, according to Anthony Giddens, a prominent British sociologist known for his holistic view of societies, he said the revival of local nationalisms and an accentuation of local identities are directly bound up with the globalizing influences to which they stand in opposition. So what are the impacts on our Commonwealth parliaments by reason of these societal shifts? The impact and challenges facing our Commonwealth parliaments today, honourable members, can be put succinctly by Jonathan Haidt, as a social psychologist. And he asked this question: how can nations reap the gains of global cooperation in trade, culture, education, human rights, and environmental protection, while respecting, rather than diluting, the world's national and parochial identities? In other words, in what kind of world can globalists and nationalists live together in peace and prosperity? The most immediate impact on Commonwealth parliaments from the tension between nationalism and globalization, from the tension, is the persistent feeding of a citizen's distrust in the institution of Parliament. This impact is not only corrosive to public trust in public institutions, but poses a significant threat to representative democracy. It is therefore vital, in my humble view, for parliaments as institutions, public institutions, and as parliamentarians, as elected representatives, to sit up and consider how they are going to respond to the serious concerns posed by rising nationalism in opposition to globalization. In fashioning their response, parliamentarians of all political stripes need to listen carefully and constructively to each other, but most importantly, to the citizens' concerns, and to take those concerns into policy making. Nations have deep roots based on pre-political, cultural, and ethnic identities. In this way, nationalism is a cultural doctrine that seeks to preserve and promote identity, culture, and the autonomy of a nation. To put it bluntly, honourable members, all human beings need to have a sense of belonging, and the sense of belonging to one's state is one of the strongest identities. At the same time, national governments have a primary responsibility to secure peace, stability, and prosperity for their citizens. And in this respect, it is without doubt that globalization has served not only as an economic phenomenon, lifting nations out of poverty and millions into work, creating political, cultural, and legal frameworks across the world which have empowered citizens to challenge autocratic rulers, and in so doing advance the rule of law and democracy. But we know also that economic freedom and rising incomes have helped to nurture a more educated and politically aware middle class, which have created active centres outside of government. People and communities who are economically free and educated are more likely to exercise their political and civil rights, and therefore hold their governments to account. In contrast, a government which is nationalistic, protectionist, and isolationist is more likely to seal its citizens off from the world, thereby depriving them of the resources and information to challenge their authority. And history has taught us that when nationalism is left to rise unchecked, without accountability or a counterforce, terrible things can happen. Big data, connected devices, and digital technology, coupled with inclusive and effective parliaments, are all enablers of democracy. In my humble view, globalization and nationalism, as I've said, are not mutually exclusive. Rather, there is an inherent link demonstrating the increasing connectedness between them. That is to say that their coexistence is not a battle in which only one is destined to emerge as the winner and the other as a loser. Rather, it is mutually beneficial to coexist and to manage these two very natural and compatible tendencies. The relationship between nationalism and globalization is one which Commonwealth parliaments and parliamentarians, for example, can actively hold in balance and manage through pursuing certain avenues. One very important avenue where globalization meets national needs is ensuring the implementation of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. These goals, if realized, would contribute to building resilient, empowered, inclusive and sustainable societies for the benefits of citizens, whilst having been agreed, as they are at the multilateral level, they focus at the national, subnational level. And the SDG's achievement, if it does achieve its goal of leaving no one behind, will be a perfect antidote to those nationalists who say that globalization has failed, because these very goals have been agreed at the multilateral level, but focus on individuals. In the context of nationalism, can support globalization also, insofar that globalization extends inclusive and sustainable development to all and does not fundamentally challenge the system of the nation state. On the other hand, globalization has a potential of containing aggressive nationalism that thrives in isolation and insecurity, and may also create incentives for the resolution and prevention of conflicts by offering the benefits of integration into various multilateral structures and the greater prospects for development and prosperity. In conclusion, the challenge for all parliaments is to manage these two types of natural tendencies in a way that best upholds prospects for peace, security, and prosperity. Strong democratic institutions that are inclusive, accountable, and transparent not only provide the best defense against challenges to representative democracy, but are also well placed to provide the full benefits that can be had from nationalism and globalization. And in this context, honourable members, I respectfully encourage parliaments of this region, and indeed throughout the Commonwealth, to consider undertaking a benchmarks assessment based on the new CPA tool, which was revised in 2018 and launched by Lord Ahmed, the Minister for the Commonwealth for the United Kingdom, which is a self-assessment tool which looks at how parliaments are performing in accordance with Goal 16 of the SDGs, which is to create inclusive, accountable, effective institutions. I'd also encourage parliaments to take a look at the CPA benchmarks for codes of conduct and to see how they might be able to adopt these for their own parliaments. Codes of conduct provide a basis of encouraging trust in our public institutions by supporting the behaviours of our members in accordance with the best principles of public representation. The relationship between nationalism and globalisation is pragmatic and will remain so the relationship between nationalism and globalisation is pragmatic and will remain so as long as the risks of globalisation do not outweigh its benefits to the security and viability of the national state and its communities. Honourable members, you have an exciting agenda ahead of you this week, touching on these hugely important issues that have been raised. I wish you great success in your deliberations, as this is a critical issue for your societies. In closing, I also wish to thank all branches for their support to the CPA family, and especially the time given by the region's regional representatives to the CPA Executive Committee, which, as many of you know, have oversight of the CPA family's good governance. The good governance of this organisation is critical, and it is important because as an organisation which promotes good governance, it is critical that we model those behaviours before we encourage others to undertake them. I'm a great believer that those who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. And therefore, it is critical that we, as the CPA, put our house in order, that we model those best behaviours so that we have credibility when we encourage our parliaments across our regions, both here and wider within our Commonwealth, to take steps to strengthen their democratic governance. I also wish to thank all of those branches who have welcomed me so generously as Secretary-General during my tenure with such a warm Caribbean feeling. Thank you very much. I wish you well in coming days.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khan, for those sobering and no doubt comprehensive words that will impact the discussions to come. We change tune just a little bit, ladies and gentlemen. We have an item of dance coming up. So without further ado, I welcome to the stage members of the Shiv Shakti Dance Company and the Malik Folk Performing Company.
Guruka Majaro, our Lupe, our Bojule, Guruka Majaro. In this land of broken rules, political fools, we've got to stay together. In many ways, the people have always been ahead of their leaders. But we got to eagle-eye this foolishness if we've got to rise above. I don't care who says that my cliche is tired, but what we need is love. See how we moving, see how we grooving, see how we step in style. One nation under a groove, the Ganges has met the Nile. The hidden agendas of the mind benders, they will always do their do. When we get to that sweet place that we're going, well, them could come along too, 'cause we moving with the power and the glory. See how we step in style. One nation, sweet salvation, the Ganges has made the night. There'll come a time when our children will ask us, big people, what did you do? And when we let the lyrics fly, pray not to lie, the choice is up to you. I say, tell me how come so many rivers of this world found their way into this land? The sweet answer lies somewhere in this very question. I hope you understand. I say, see how we moving, watch how we grooving, see how we step in style. One nation under a groove, the Ganges has met the Nile. The hidden agendas of the mind benders, they will always do their do. But when we get to that sweet place that we're going, even them could come along too, 'cause we moving with the power and the glory. See how we groove in style. One nation, sweet salvation, the Ganges has met the Nile. See how we moving, watch how we grooving, see how we step in style. One nation, one sweet groove, the Ganges has met the Nile. The hidden agenda just smart men and politicians can come along if they want. Cause we're moving with the power and the glory. See how we float in style. One nation, sweet salvation. The Ganges has made the night. I say, the Ganges has made the night. Oh, yeah, yeah. The Ganges has made the night. Already, the Ganges has made the night. Yeah. The Ganges has made the night. The Ganges has made the night.
Once again, members of the Shiv Shakti Dance Company and the Malik Folk Performing Company. It is my honor to call to the stage to bring remarks the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the Honorable Dr. Keith Rowley. Please put your hands together.
Her Excellency, President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Spola May Weeks, the President of the Senate of Trinidad and Tobago, Senator Christine Kangaloo, Speaker of the House, Mrs. Bridget Anissa George, other distinguished regional speakers and presiding officers, His Worship the Mayor of Port of Spain, Alderman Joel Martinez, Ministers of Government, other Members of Parliament, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Secretary General of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, Mr. Akbar Khan, Clerk of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago House of Representatives, Mrs. Jackie Sampson Miguel, and other distinguished clerks of parliaments of the region, other distinguished conference participants, observers, youth parliamentarians, other invited guests, members of the media, members of the clergy, with particular thanks to our representatives of our First Peoples. Thank you for your invocation. Ladies and gentlemen, all. On behalf of the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, I rise to welcome all the distinguished delegates and other dignitaries who are assembled here for the 44th Annual Conference of the Caribbean, the Americas, and the Atlantic region of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. This is not the first time Trinidad and Tobago has hosted our regional colleagues. I believe we last hosted you in 2010. The people and government of Trinidad and Tobago are therefore gratified that the Regional Commonwealth Parliamentary Fraternity chose Port of Spain as the venue for this auspicious conference after a gap of some 9 years. Fellow parliamentarians, we are indeed fortunate to belong to a region where democracy flourishes and where we can communicate, debate, and exchange insights on lessons learned without persecution and fear of reprisal, where we can peacefully assemble and draw on rich parliamentary traditions and benefit from the pool of knowledge and expertise in governance and lawmaking. As I look in the audience, I see some familiar faces. Notice I didn't say old faces. Faces of friends I have known over 30-plus years of membership in this great association of parliamentarians. I also see some new and unfamiliar faces, and I'm reassured then that our region is in good hands. Friends and delegates, as you continue in your leadership journey, embrace the learning opportunities provided by the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. When the CPA was founded in 1911 as the Empire Parliamentary Association, the world, as we know it, was a vastly different place. The British Empire constituted one sovereign parliamentary democracy. Today, there are 53 Commonwealth nations, and the CPA has a membership of 180 branches. Our region of relatively small sovereign states remains a strong force in the CPA, comprising some 19 branches. So, coming together as a region on a regular basis is important, for it is here among our peers in this community of practice that we learn from each other and deepen our commitment to the lofty ideals of the rule of law, separation of powers, human dignity, individual rights and freedoms, and parliamentary democracy. As we extol the virtues of fraternal cooperation and amity among states, the question that may arise is whether global collaboration is under siege. This issue is directly linked to the theme that has been chosen for this 44th Annual Regional Conference of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. The theme, as you're familiar with, is globalization and nationalism, Quo Vadis, impacts on Commonwealth parliamentarians. Simply, where are we going? Or maybe, where do we go from here? Globalization was the catalyst identified for a bigger, better, and boundless system of trade agreement. It was the much anticipated salve and balm to ease and to bring relief to countries experiencing economic woe and stagnation. When the concept of globalization first emerged on the political and economic landscape, it held the promise of free trade, job creation, competitiveness, market access, information exchange, cultural connectivity, and the free movement of persons, goods, and services. Today, we are realizing that this process, while replete with potential, was not without its socioeconomic and environmental costs and burdens. Trade violations, unfair trade practices, information misuse and abuse, and environmental damage are but a few of the challenges emerging from the underbelly of globalization. Perhaps the harshest reality to be faced is that in our globalized world, inequality within and among countries has increased, and the gap between the haves and the have-nots is as glaring as ever today. Today, this very all-embracing concept is being weaponized against us, especially the vulnerable. Indeed, the world is by far a vastly different place compared to the 1900s and the 1960s, when, in the latter time, the sweeping wave of nationalism sparked and smoldered the embers of independence for many of us. We in Trinidad and Tobago confidently grasped ours in 1962. Whereas globalization once promised the removal of barriers, and to open doors and to open borders, the creeping rise of radical nationalism is breeding dangerous discontent and disunity as regional alliances fracture. In certain quarters, the focus is to look inward to myopic interests and insular objectives, rather than looking outwards towards the common good of mankind. This simmering discontent has given rise to intolerance, open racism and xenophobia, with a proliferation in hate crimes and conflicts worldwide. Gates are being shut before dialogue can even commence in the name of country and self-preservation, oftentimes in contradiction of even the words of their own prayers. So the question that we contemplate, fellow parliamentarians, is quo vadis? Where are we going? How do we prepare our Commonwealth nations to address these very real risks and threats? And how do we, policymakers and legislators in the Caribbean, in the Americas, in the Atlantic region, forge solutions to tackle global issues and concerns such as these? In a world of inequalities and uneven development, the Commonwealth distinguishes itself as a family of nations which is less preoccupied with structure and hierarchy and more concerned about performance and connectivity. In this divided world lies our association, whose membership, regardless of gender, race, religion, or culture, is united by common interests: respect for the rule of law and the pursuit of positive ideals of parliamentary democracy. I commend you all for keeping at the forefront of your deliberations the threat we all face, including threats to the survival of this great association at a time of very real and dangerous world unease. I say no more on this point and leave you to your own reflections. Friends and delegates, I wish time permitted me to join you on Tuesday when you will discuss the committee system and the challenges faced by our region, which still utilizes the term part-time parliamentarians. After more than 30 years as an MP, I am still befuddled by that term. My friends, colleagues, the Parliament is the institution that represents the people's voice in the government, and maybe in everywhere else. It is the cornerstone of democracy. This important institution, of which we all hold membership, fulfills two critical functions: to legislate and to hold government to account. In doing so effectively, we must engage in myriads of activities, all of which matter to all our people. The fundamental objectives of parliamentary oversight are to promote the people's well-being and improve governance over their affairs. Oversight processes assess the impact of government action on society, and they help ensure the appropriate resources are provided to implement government's programs and identify unintended or negative effects of government policy and actions. And we also shed light on corrupt activities. Oversight and accountability are major dimensions of the complementary democratic mandates of government and parliament. Governments provide services to citizens. Parliament hold governments to account by questioning and challenging their actions and policies and making recommendations for change. No matter how tedious and repetitively boring these assignments may be, we must not be daunted in their pursuits, regardless of whom might be offended by the process. So if we legislate but do not engage in activities that hold government to account, are we fulfilling our mandate? If we legislate but do not engage in activities that investigate the concerns of the people, are we fulfilling our mandate? As parliamentarians, we must therefore be able to involve ourselves in the oversight and representational activities. And such activities must provide us with opportunities to regularly consult with our people if we are to truly represent their voice. So what do we do, and how do we do it so that it matters to the people? Why then are we as a region the last to cling to this concept that our role as parliamentarians is part-time? I leave you to muse on that in your deliberations in this conference. And of course, make whatever recommendation you see fit. Few parliamentarians of the Caribbean, Americas, and the Atlantic region of the CPA will disagree if I say that we are not part-time, anytime. So as we converge here in Port of Spain to foster, to renew, and to fortify our ties, to expand our regional cooperation, and to review current parliamentary processes, let us remember that 1.8 billion young people around the world between the ages of 10 and 24 who are looking to us to deliver fairness, security, prosperity, sustainability, and ethical conduct, starting out on our corner in the globe, depending maybe on your deliberations. Political participation by young people has emerged in recent years as a crucial new focus of efforts to enhance democracy worldwide. I commend the regional CPA in its continued efforts to include programs to identify and train youth activists to become political leaders of tomorrow. The seeds of noble ideals and multilateral efforts to maintain sustainable development will only find fertile ground in Commonwealth parliaments that are collectively willing and determined to promote democracy and good governance in all its endeavors. Our parliaments must also welcome the opportunities presented by globalization, whilst eschewing the dangerous and divisive beliefs and mindsets that are cultivated by new forms of nationalism. The sacred space of the parliament is where ideas, goals, and ambitions are to be translated into tangible outcomes for our citizenry. It is therefore no small feat when we parliamentarians gather to equip ourselves for better governance, stronger representation, and enhanced service delivery by sharing knowledge and best practices and discussing ways and means of enriching the quality of life of our peoples through the critically important mandate of the CPA. In contemplating the future of Commonwealth Caribbean parliamentarians, Quo Vadis, I am reminded of the words of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, a patron of the CPA, who said, and I quote, "As we look for new answers in the modern age, I prefer the tried and tested recipes, like speaking well of each other and reflecting different points of views, coming together to seek out the common ground and never losing sight of the bigger picture," unquote. Again, on behalf of all the people of Trinidad and Tobago, I warmly welcome you to our beautiful country. I'm aware that many of you are not strangers, including our Secretary General, and I urge all of you to not be strangers in Trinidad and Tobago. Members of my government and I look forward to meeting you in the days ahead at events that Madam President and Madam Speaker have organized on your behalf. I trust that you will participate fully and enjoy it all. I see listed on your agenda the opportunity to appreciate and enjoy our flora, our fauna, and maybe our music and our food. I trust that you'll have a very enjoyable experience. Please accept all our best wishes for a successful conference, and thank you very much for choosing Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another item of entertainment for you now, as I welcome to the stage the Parliament Choir.
One on the way. What a weather's always in need. What a beautiful day. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning.
Every time I pass, you look at me. Every time I pass, you look at me. I'm going to tell me, Mama, don't send
Is there a place for a hopeless sinner who has hurt all mankind just to see the soul remember? What about the one arm? Let's get together and feel alright as it was in the beginning. So shall it be in the end. Yeah. Give thanks and praise to the Lord, and I will feel alright, children.
One race, Caribbean man, the same place, on the same trip, the same ship. We must push for common intention, for a better life in the region, for we women and we children. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbean man. That must be the ambition of the Caribbe
Ladies and gentlemen, the Parliament Choir. There was one line that resonated there. I don't think they intended it. There's something about coming to work early and leaving late at night. This parliamentary setting would get that one. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for a feature address, and I would like you to join me in welcoming to the podium the President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Her Excellency Paula May Weeks, to give this remark.
Please have your seats. Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Senator the Honorable Christine Kangaloo, President of the Senate, the Honorable Bridget Anizet George, Speaker of the House, Honorable Ministers and Members of Parliament, Your Excellencies, Heads of Diplomatic Missions, Mr. Akbar Khan, Secretary General of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, distinguished members of the resource team, Your Worship, the Mayor, Alderman Joel Martinez, other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Even the most casual observer of the proceedings of our Parliament would be concerned about how the people's business is being conducted. Those who follow avidly might well be alarmed. Walkouts, putouts, distrust, thinly veiled insults, inability to arrive at consensus quickly, if at all, on the simplest of issues, referrals to the Privileges Committee, whether to apologize or not, all those seem to take precedence over formulating laws for the good of our citizens. The core function of our distinguished houses is essential and purposeful. But what does the average man in the street think about what goes on there? 40 years ago, one of our Calypsonians, Explainer, expressed it this way. Referring to our lawmakers, he composed the song entitled, They Kicks In Parliament. The bad news is that public opinion has not changed for the better since then. Around much of the world, this region included, people are losing faith in their elected and appointed officials entrusted with making laws that will directly affect their lives and livelihoods. And as we would have gathered today and for this conference to do nothing more than socialize and network if we do not challenge ourselves to confront the criticism and provide a credible and comprehensive response. Your theme for this conference asks of you the question, Quo vadis, whither goest thou? Or in common parlance, where we going? In respect of the issues of globalization and nationalism, the most pressing issues of the modern society, and it's an urgent question. But I make bold to suggest that the question also has to be asked generally of your stewardship as parliamentarians. I thank the Speaker of the House of Representatives for her kind invitation to address you, parliamentarians of the Caribbean, Americas, and Atlantic region of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, at a time when these issues need to be firmly on the front burner. Controversy and constitutional crisis have erupted in Guyana, and in Trinidad and Tobago, we approach the 19th anniversary of an attempted coup d'etat, which played out in our parliament and shook our nation to the core. We in the Caribbean are no strangers to political crisis and intrigue, and we can reasonably expect in the coming times more of the same. To the average citizen, Parliament can appear to be a glorified talk shop, governed by self-interest and partisanship. Walter Bagehot, a 19th century British journalist, described Parliament as, and I quote, nothing less than a big meeting of more or less idle people, end of quote. The stereotypical labels are unfortunate and misplaced when we consider the critical role that the Parliament plays in a functional and well-run democracy. But as Harvey Lee Atwater, American political consultant during the Reagan years, so famously said, perception is reality. It is the Parliament which makes the laws that affect people's lives and provides a platform to undo many wrongs and to confer and entrench important rights. People expect their parliamentarians to represent their interests and manage their affairs, keep the executive accountable, and to formulate germane policies and frameworks in response to or in anticipation of disasters and crises. Not unlike the Calypsonian, parliamentarians are the people's mouthpiece, conveying their concerns and perspectives. According to the United Nations, people in the Caribbean region want their representatives to address two main concerns. Firstly, the creation of job opportunities, and secondly, assistance in getting those jobs. On its face, those are simple requirements, but satisfying them can call for complex solutions, and that is where the parliamentarian comes in. Take, for example, the issue of immigration, a pressing concern for our workforce in Trinidad and Tobago. Consensus on how to implement relevant legal frameworks and fulfill our international obligations seems elusive, and our people are anxious for clear, equitable, sustainable, and humanitarian roadmaps for the long and short term. Only Parliament can provide that comfort. Members of Parliament must be unafraid and unfazed when it comes to dealing with the matters which affect the man on the street, making hard decisions and legislating accordingly. Once electoral and appointment processes have run their course, representatives have the paramount duty to hold the interests of their constituents above their political selves, an obligation that must be reinforced by the rules and procedures of Parliament. Proper parliamentary oversight is critical to the running of a country. The evidence indicates that where parliaments conduct effective scrutiny of public spending, there is a lower incidence of corruption. According to Transparency International, Barbados has the lowest level of perceived corruption in the Caribbean region, and it places 25th at the global level. Bahamas is a close second at number 29. Trinidad and Tobago is pegged at a disappointing 78th on the most recent Corruption Perceptions Index. And whether or not we quibble over or dispute the accuracy of the analysis, clearly we are not doing well enough. Remember Atwater's wisdom. Truth be told, we all have room for improvement when it comes to the perception of corruption. But there is another concern, that is, of how seriously those who sit in Parliament view their responsibilities. Allow me to quote a few excerpts from Explainer's 1979 contribution to highlight the problem. And having heard the marvelous Parliament choir sing songs from many islands, I have no doubt that you will understand quite clearly what he was saying. I feel the government in this country should treat people more seriously. When they have Parliament meeting, something constructive should be happening. They kicks in all the time. They're blowing everybody's mind. Foodstuffs have shortage daily. Business places burning in the city. Before they watch these things seriously, the whole meeting is a comedy. Ridicule, fatty given, all of the members laughing. While they're having a good time, we catching, we royal behind. A stinging indictment, and we must investigate whether it is as current now as it was then. While there certainly is room for piquant and jollity, there has to be alignment between the distinguished and important nature of the work and the conduct exhibited by those who sit in Parliament. Debates will become passionate, even heated, but our representatives must model the highest standards of dignity, respect, and civility while in the chamber. With the advent of the Parliament channel on local television, our nation gets to witness the behavior and sometimes the misbehavior of our representatives. Our young people, in the spirit of the old Malayan proverb, monkey see, monkey do, will consider what they see us do to be appropriate, and so mimic and perpetuate the standards that we set. A vital aspect of this region's movement forward is engaging our young people and ensuring that they are interested in, understand the benefit of, and participate in the work of Parliament. 60% of the Commonwealth's 2.4 billion people are below the age of 30. The youth parliamentarians who will be participating in this 15th Regional Youth Parliament debate later this week must understand and harness their power and work towards bringing about the change that they wish to see. The involvement of young people in parliamentary decision-making is fundamental to the future of our region. Diversity strengthens parliaments, and overall we appear to be making steady, though slow progress when it comes to the gender balance. Women's participation in politics is important in ensuring good governance and adherence to the principles of democracy. They comprise roughly half of our population, yet are underrepresented in most parliaments around the world. According to the United Nations, approximately 22% of cabinet positions in the Anglophone Caribbean are held by women. While the rise of women in leadership has not yet translated into the permanent shift in cultural attitudes that one would wish, it is my hope that collectively this frontier will soon be conquered. We must forge a distinct path for the 21st century Caribbean, Americas, and Atlantic region of the Commonwealth. Well, earlier I gave you some bad news and you took it well. So as your reward, here's the good news. We've got this. It's well within our grasp. Our identity and unique needs will inform our response to the most pressing issues of our time. Today, globalization and nationalism are at the center of the discussion. Globalization is a double-edged sword, both helping and hindering our small nations. Technological innovation and communications, increased foreign direct investment and tourism, and easy access to foreign goods and services have benefited the Caribbean society tremendously. On the other hand, our economies are at the mercy of the vagaries of the global economy, and we in Trinidad and Tobago are currently suffering the effects of that reality, as I suspect are many of our Caribbean nation states. The dismantling of preferential trade agreements, the exodus of skilled workers, and rising debt burdens have also affected our potential to thrive. It falls to our parliamentarians to balance the pros and cons and create policy frameworks that will ensure growth and reduce debt in order to protect those of our people who are most affected, those who are the front line, such as our farmers, hotel employees, and manufacturers. In response to the effects of globalization, one facet of nationalism has reared its ugly head in countries across Europe and in the United States. The type of nationalism that your Secretary General refers to as ethnic nationalism. In Trinidad and Tobago, although the influx of Venezuelan migrants has seen an outpouring of generosity and kindness on the part of some Trinbagonians, it has also opened a window into our parochialism, xenophobia, and racism. Hostile and derogatory comments about migrants are made on social media and talk radio, all in the name of patriotism. It is for our lawmakers, representing the views, interests, and aspirations of those on whose behalf they speak, to set the tone. Our people will follow where we lead. As small, sovereign, developing states, our resources and capacities are limited. The challenges we face are manifold and best tackled together by countries with a shared heritage. We have to conceive, plan, and innovate strategies to meet the challenges of the present and the future. And we must, in the context and climate of the 21st century, make use of available technology to communicate to the public what is being done and how it affects them. This is where the CPA finds its purpose: to advance parliamentary democracy and strengthen models of governance. I quote from the CAA region recommended benchmarks. The parliamentary system is a dynamic one, so that best practice today will be surpassed tomorrow as institutions, members, officials, and citizens alike seek even higher standards. All of the territories represented in this room have committed to the fulfillment of the United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. We can move closer to the achievement of its 16th goal to promote just, peaceful, and inclusive societies with the strengthening of parliamentary frameworks and the continued work and influence of organizations such as the CPA. I am pleased to declare this conference open. May your deliberations and interactions contribute to the enhancement of Caribbean identity and unity in the years to come. And to our visitors, I hope that you will find the time to enjoy and explore the natural, cultural, and culinary attractions of Trinidad and Tobago before you depart our shores. Have a most successful conference, and I now declare it open.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Please be seated. Can I welcome to the podium to give a message of thanks the Deputy Speaker of the House and Member of Parliament for Tunapuna, Mr. Esmond Ford.
Good morning. Her Excellency Paula May Weeks, ORTT, President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Honorable Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, MP, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Senator, the Honorable Christine Kangaloo, President of the Senate, the Honorable Bridget Anisette George, MP, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Akbar Khan, Secretary General of the Commonwealth Parliament Association, Ministers of Government and Members of Parliament, Senators, members of the various legislatures, members of the Executive Committee of the Commonwealth Parliament Association, members of the Diplomatic Corps, His Worship Alderman Joel Martinez, Mayor of Port of Spain, Mr. Ricardo Barrett Hernandez, Chief of Santa Rosa First Peoples Community, observers, clerks of legislators and permanent secretaries, youth parliamentarians, members of staff of the Office of Parliament, members of the media, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, morning once more. I feel privileged and honored to have been given the opportunity to extend a vote of thanks for this 44th annual conference of the Caribbean, Americas, and the Atlantic region of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association on behalf of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. I would like, first of all, to express our heartfelt thanks to Her Excellency Paula Mae Weeks, ORTT, President of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, for her exceptional featy address and gracious participation for the opening ceremony of this 44th conference. Rest assured, this present Parliament, from the Speaker's chair and also the Deputy Speaker chair, we'll do our best. I would like also to convey our sincere thanks for the outstanding remarks from the Honorable Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Our profound gratitude to the Honorable Christine Kangaloo, President of the Senate, for his stimulating and timely remarks at this occasion. You continue to demonstrate your interest in and commitment to the development of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, and by extension, the Commonwealth. Your remarks show the scope of our thinking on these important issues that affect Commonwealth parliamentarians. We are especially pleased to have Mr. Akbar Khan, CPA Secretary General, bring greetings at this 44th conference. The success of this opening ceremony depends on the efforts of many people. I would like to thank the members of the Executive Committee whose enthusiasm and support has allowed us to come together to exchange ideas and discuss issues of mutual interest in our parliaments. We are grateful to the members of the Caribbean, Americas, and the Atlantic region of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association who will share valuable insights that will shape the thinking of this conference this week. We express our warm appreciation to the members of the Senate, the House of Representatives, and the Diplomatic Corps. We are fortunate to have you in our presence today. I am indeed humbled by the presence of our other specially invited guests who have come from various places to show their support and cooperation. At this time, I would like to thank the Shiv Shakti Dance Company and the Malik Folk Performing Company, the Ganges meeting the Nile. Thank you. Also, every member of the parliamentary choir are employees of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. Well done, Clerk of the House. We also express warm appreciation to the helping hands behind the scenes who have worked tirelessly to make this ceremony happen. We have been fortunate enough to be backed by a team of very motivated and dedicated persons from the Office of the Parliament who know their job and are result-oriented. This conference brings together representatives from 17 countries of the Caribbean, Americas, and the Atlantic region. As we bring all of you together, we cannot imagine the knowledge and ideas that would be generated, and the relationships that would be formed. Our hope is that this conference will not only break new grounds in terms of content, but help us strengthen our capacity to deal with the emerging issues that affect our parliaments. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a great pleasure. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ford. It is now my duty to make a few announcements. First of all, that brings us to the end of the formal speeches. If you look at your program, there is one other item to be completed, and that is the official photograph. And so at this time, those of you who are joining us via the Parliament channel, this concludes the broadcast for today. Thank you so very much for joining us. So what we're is to set the stage for the official photograph. We won't be dismissing you just yet. So we are setting up the chairs, and when they